This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into SportsDay Insider presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pal, Evan Grant. Evan, as we're taping this on Tuesday, the Rangers were coming off 3 series wins, went to Kansas City, and then go out and dump that first game of the series. Kind of unfortunate. They had some good things going there for a while. You had Nate Eovaldi had a no-hitter going into the 5th inning. Then it all kind of fell apart for him. I guess, what was that, the 7th? 6th and 7th. Then Jalen Beeks comes in, and I
know they get mixed up a lot.
Well, I do, and I did not know this stat about Jalen Beeks that is what, 3 games this year he's given up a home run to the first batter he's faced.
I wasn't aware of that either.
Yeah, so not good. Not good. First, and then in this case, it was the first pitch he threw was a home run, and then gave up a double to the next batter. It was not a good game for Jalen Beeks, who may have run his course here. So, at any rate, though, things are, for the most part, are on the up and up, I would say, with the Rangers at this point. Although the Rangers have still got to be a little concerned about Corey Seager at this point. And I wanted to ask you, do you think this has become is there a physical problem here that's keeping him from his timing being so off? Do you think he's got a bad back?
I don't have an answer for that. I honestly don't. I think he's passed all the protocols. You know, he doubled and he homered in that first weekend back. He took a day off because the Rangers were fixing to play 8 straight. And they were playing a day game after a night game. It won't surprise me if he's off again on Thursday. I'm sure there's some managing it that's going on. But I don't, Corey's not going to give you any insight. The Rangers are going to be protective. So I don't have a real answer there on whether he's got a more serious back issue, or if he simply is just not right this year mechanically.
Yeah, I just don't know what it is. There was a ball last night. I was watching the broadcast, and pitched right down the middle of the plate, 91 miles an hour. He swung and missed it. And it's not the kind of thing that Seager misses, when he's on. I mean, that's not a ball that should get past him. That's not a pitch that should get past him. So anyway, it is getting a bit to the point now where it's concerning. I've always just felt all along that sooner or later he'll get this figured out and he'll be just fine. But if it is a physical thing that's causing him to be off to the worst start of his career, then, and at this point it's no longer a start. We are well into the season at this point, and that's what makes this, I think, concerning. So I do think
the one thing I would say to this, Kevin, is just on this, right? At this point, Corey's been back from an IL stint for 3 games. I would give it, a week's worth of games before I start to make any decisions. You miss a month or 3 weeks like he did, and it's going to take some time to find your timing again, especially when he was in a place, at the outset of this whole thing where he was in an 0 for 27. So I'm still not sure what to make of it. I think that when you talk to folks in the Rangers organization, they've all said Corey's going to be Corey when it's all said and done. Even before the injury, I was like, is Corey going to be Corey this year? And I don't know that there's any answers for that, which honestly leads me to my main point for today, which is I don't know that there's any answers about who this Rangers team is. And I'm not sure they have any answers, particularly on the offensive side. I just don't know what they are. And I don't know what their identity is. I don't know if they know what their identity is.
Well, I will say this. I'm not as concerned about the offense as I have been in the past. Simply because of the bounce back of Josh Jung, of Zeke Duran, to a certain extent, Jock Peterson. Jake Berger. I mean, those were guys who all of them were awful, basically the or last year, and then and some of them for 2 years now. And to have Duran and Jung playing at an all-star level was far more than I could have expected for them to do this year. Just to get them back to league average at that point, I thought was the most you could ask. And I even joked that maybe Peterson, Jung, and Evan Carter, I guess Evan Carter was the third, could finish 1, 2, 3 in the Comeback Player of the Year award. Well, I mean, they've got two guys right now that are candidates for that. So that's pretty amazing to get that kind of performance. I think the thing that's hurting them now is that, yes, I do think for them to go anywhere in the playoffs, that Seager has to be Seager. He can't be this player. And for now, they can carry people like Evan Carter, who's not playing particularly well, although he'd been playing well defensively. Although last night, there are 3 balls out there in the outfield. And frankly, he's got to catch at least 2 of those.
Yeah, I asked Skip about that after the game, and he wasn't. He wanted to go back and look at some metrics and some video, because I didn't know if at least one of them should have been caught. I'm not going to sit here and say if they absolutely should have been caught, but I thought the ball in which he got turned around in multiple directions, that's just a bad read. I mean, there's no other way to say that. You may not be able to catch up to a ball, and you may be playing too shallow on something out of instructions, but when you get turned in multiple directions, that's just a bad indicator.
Yeah, it's a bad look because the wind was not that bad out there. There was some wind, but it was not that bad. And that was a bad read. I thought also the ball to right center, he took a bad route on that. He didn't run directly to it. He ran to the wall, then ran along the wall, and then kind of made a jump, looking like, it looked a little bit like Leody Taveras. He was afraid of the wall and kind of took a little bit of a leap before he had to, and he had one more step, could have made that catch. And it also looked to me like he was playing awfully shallow. And as you said, that's dictated, by defensive strategies there. Just seemed to me not a good idea to have, because I think that he has improved as an outfielder, and I think he obviously is rated very high this year defensively in the outfield. But I don't think he's particularly good at going back on the ball. And if that is an issue for you, then I think you need to be playing the guy pretty deep.
Yeah, I mean, this ballpark has changed dimensions this year, but not.
It didn't change in center though, and that's the thing.
Right.
It's changed in left and right. Yeah.
And I just don't. It just looked bad last night. There's no other way around it. It looked bad. Evan had been out early to try and do some work to bunt early, and to make that part of his game. He and Skip talked before the game privately, and I don't know if that was a pep talk from Skip or if it was like, you need to do some things, and I don't know if that carried into the game. I have no idea on this on what took place. All I know is that these were bad. These were balls that looked like they had bad reads, and it just seems out of the ordinary for Carter. I think he's looked pretty good on balls going back in Globe Life Field. I just think there's a lot of, in both these parks and center field, there's a lot of ground to cover, and so it's a lot of times it's going to look like you're on a mad dash one way or another.
Yeah. I just like to see a guy play back there naturally. I want a guy to feel, that was the same thing when Leody was playing center field. God bless him. He'd go back to the wall, and sometimes he would just kind of bump up against it and it looked silly. He looked like he had no idea what he was doing out there when he got close to the wall. And I want a guy to play fairly freely back there. I don't want you to say you have to be fearless when you play center field, but that's part of the job, is going into the wall. And you need to know when you're there, and you got to be able to feel it. And you certainly should have at this point taken enough fly balls that it's not an issue, because those are difference makers. That was a difference in that game, really, up to that point, with those balls and to center field. So and especially if you're not bringing anything on the offensive side, well, then you got to really be doing it on defense. And at some point, if that, and then this was a one game, maybe it's just a one off, right? So we'll see. And he has been good this year defensively, and it's because his WAR is what, second best on the team behind Nemo, right?
It is now third best. You know who has the highest WAR on the Texas Rangers this year?
Duran.
Ezekiel Duran.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I tell you, it is just amazing to watch him hit now, and as we discussed before, that whole thing where, all right, just don't be going after this stuff, on the outside of the plate. Don't be chasing that stuff. And it just seems to have made all the difference in the world. And the double off the wall Monday night or Tuesday night, that's a terrific hit. Ball's on the outside of the plate. He goes with it and just hits a line drive off the wall. I mean, that's just really impressive. And this is, what everybody thought that he was going to be. Perhaps, I don't know if he thought he'd be this good, after they made the trade, traded Joey Gallo to the Yankees and got him and Josh Smith back. But he's been terrific. And I guess the best part about all this too is that, so he is risen, Josh has fallen, but now Josh goes back to his utility role, which he knows very well and fits that, right?
Yeah, I think that it does offer the Rangers another level of a weapon when you've got Josh Smith available and he can play as many different positions as he can. He played, I think he was going to play first base last night at AAA Round Rock. That's all. That's like three left-handed hitters the Rangers now have working out at first base, which might be a hint to Jake Berger. Alejandro Exuna, Josh Smith, and Nicky Lopez have all taken ground balls at first base in the last week, which I find interesting. But
okay, you find that interesting. What do you think? What do you think that means?
Utility guy is not going to be the answer to this Rangers offense's issues.
No. It's not. Well, now
Everybody,
and obviously you are more down on the offense than I am. Tell me why that is, with all of these guys hitting so much better in the lineup than they did last year and the year before.
Well, I think there really is something to Ezekiel Duran's connection with Alex Centrone, and I've been trying to work on something on that. I think that's really made a difference for him. I think he feels much more comfortable connecting with this guy in Spanish. They talk to each other before every at bat and after every at bat. I think that's been part of it. I think part of it is him moving off the plate just a little bit, which has allowed him to not chase balls off the plate as much because he sees them outside now. He doesn't see them as something he can get to. In Josh Jung's case, I think, he said in spring training he wanted to be obsessed with the process, but I think what he wanted to be obsessed with was returning to the player he was when he was drafted, which is a line drive hitter with occasional power, and the ability to hit the ball to all fields. And he also, if you really want to take one element out of all of this, Kevin, for both of these guys, in these two guys in particular, they're simply not chasing as much as they did last year. And that's made a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that was the thing with Duran. You just knew that he was just going to be, he was a little bit, well, I don't think I want to go there, but I just felt like he was just a guy that was easy to get out. He's just an easy out. Just throw him anything up there, throw it a little bit outside, he'll chase it, boom, you're out. And that was, then the line was just full of that, right? Guys chasing all the time. And so they're not doing it as much. But it's easy to say, well, why don't they just fix that? And it's easy for guys to go through short periods of time when, okay, they do start to hit again. But now these guys have done it for all season, Jung and Duran both. And who knows what happens at this point. But I would say, just watching them, that they've pretty much got this licked. I'm not saying that Josh Jung's going to be a 300 hitter, but maybe he is, and if he's a 300 hitter who doesn't hit 25 home runs, that's okay with me. If his OPS, what's his OPS right now?
Josh?
Yeah.
850.
850. Got an 850 OPS. So, I mean, that's just phenomenal. That's phenomenal results. And this is, I know that they were not counting on him to do this. When I asked Chris Young in the spring, and I was writing a column about Evan Carter, as a matter of fact, and I said, is Evan Carter, of the guys who aren't hitting, is Evan Carter the most important simply because of all the things he can do? Because he's fast and he's got a little bit of pop and he plays a great outfield. So if he's at the top of his game, is that the best thing that can happen here? And Chris said, yes, because of all those reasons. And I still think that's probably true. But clearly, I think at this point, there's just too much evidence to show that Carter is not going to be that player. He's not going to be at the top of his game in all facets. But right now, Josh Jung is playing as good as he can play. This is max Josh at this point, and I'd say the same thing about Duran as well.
Listen, this is the best version of Josh Jung we've seen. I think it's better than we saw in 2023, to be perfectly honest. Now,
sure.
Defensively, he's not had as good a year as he did in 23. But as an offensive asset, I think he's a much more complete and consistent hitter this year. This is clearly the best that Duran's had because it's the most he's played and the most he's been able to contribute. And again, I think if you're going to look for one commonality there, it is that the Rangers have found a way to communicate to them to eliminate the one thing that they can eliminate that gives them the best advantage, and that is chasing as much as they did. You look at their numbers, right? And you've got, Josh, a year ago, Josh struck out 25% of the time and walked 5% of the time. This year, his strikeout rate is down to 14.8 and his walk rate is up to 7.0. Those are significant switches. You turn some strikeouts into walks, you turn some strikeouts into hits. Those are huge, huge improvements that every hitting coach tries to make with every struggling hitter. And if you go to Duran, you're going to find the same numbers. And so it credit to the hitting instructors for finding a way to get through to both of these guys and to get them doing the things they need to do to put themselves in better position for success.
All right. One last thing before we get out of the Rangers here. You mentioned, and you just walked right away from my question about Jake Berger, what that means with all these people working at first base. Do you think that are they sending a message to Berger by doing this?
I don't know if they're sending a message to Berger so much as they are trying to prepare that, look, against right-handed pitching, Jake struggles. And there may need to be a guy who's capable of taking some games at first base against right-handed pitching who swings left-handed to give them a little bit of a, I don't want to say more balance, but to load up, to give them loaded splits against right-handed pitching. And you face an awful lot of right-handed pitching. So I don't know that this would be a case where the Rangers would sit and platoon Jake every day against right-handed pitching, but I do think it is a situation where they're going to look for ways to get more left-handers in the lineup against right-handers to start the game. And if that means Jake sits, then so be it.
Yeah, so be it for sure. All right. That's going to do it for the Rangers segment of our podcast. We're going to move over a little bit and talk about some news this week. Pretty big news on Monday when it was announced that a Lubbock County district judge issued an injunction against the NCAA that said that you can't keep Brendan Sorsby from playing. It would do imminent and irreparable harm to his future, which, as I wrote in the column that day, the harm being done here is to college football, not to Brendan Sorsby. But a pretty unbelievable ruling. And the crazy thing about that was you'd think, well, okay, you got that injunction from a Lubbock judge. This judge, Ken Curry, actually is a UTA grad who was a retired Tarrant County judge who was assigned to the case and who went to UTA and University of Houston Law School. So anyway, pretty crazy that could happen. The ramifications of that are vast. First of all, you have the Big Ten discussing the possibility of not playing Texas Tech in any sport going forward. A friend of mine just texted me and said his son is an assistant at Towson State, and he said that, and rightfully so. What do we tell our players now when we tell them not to gamble? If all they got to do is sue, and then boom, you're back in. No problem, no sweat. This is, I think, this is a huge issue of all the things that have happened for me in college football, and it's been crazy, right? A lot of stuff new, with NIL, the transfer portal, all of it. That's all new. But a lot of those things were already kind of happening in college sports. This is really a divergence now in my mind. The fact that a guy could make more than 10,000 bets, many of them on his own team, and he goes to rehab for 35 days and he's back.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me from an ethical standpoint. I don't know the ins and outs of navigating the law. I find the argument that this does irreparable damage to his earning potential to be a little bit flimsy because, frankly, for me, he's done irreparable damage to his earnings potential because he's a gambler. He's a known gambler. And so our NFL team's going to be really keen to take a big chance on that. We'll see what happens. But I just think it again goes to the whole idea that college football is basically toothless and lawless at this point in time. And yet on the field, my gosh, the game seems spectacular. So I don't know what to make of any of it, but it's just this ruling for me is opening the door to a terrible precedent where, like you said, what are you going to tell kids now? And how are you going to deter kids from gambling? And again, I don't care if you're gambling on your team. Here's the issue. You gamble, you lose, you get into a vulnerable financial situation, and then you put yourself in a position where people are now asking you to fix games or to shave points or to do things that are going to help you get out of financial trouble. And again, I'm a big believer in paying college athletes. I'm a big believer in some degree of ability to transfer freely. But my goodness, this just seems like we might as well just let's just drop the words college from the whole game because it's not. It's more professional and lawless than the NFL.
Well, it is, and I guess that's what makes it so compelling, on all of this. I know that most people hate all of it. They hate the fact that players are getting paid so much money. They hate the fact that my own sons were telling me that the other day, oh, I just hate these guys. So they just get up and they leave and they go other places. And I said, yeah, I don't like it either, personally, but I understand the situation. It's just like anything else. If you're both of my boys played D3 sports, and the oldest went to Millsaps College in Mississippi. When he got there, they didn't tell him there were 11 other quarterbacks on the roster. Of course, he didn't ask that question either. You only get to play one at a time, and it was all fine. We were cool with all that until the next year when that coach left and the new coach came in. He said, "Yeah,
Imagine this. Imagine if you ran all 11 quarterbacks out there at the same time.
Play 11 guys." Yeah, I like it. I like that. But the point is that only one quarterback can play at a time, and everybody wants to say it's easy for fans to say, I can't follow this guy anymore. I can't do this. I don't know the player anymore. Yeah, that's all true. But it's not your life. It's their lives, and they're trying to make the best life for themselves as possible. And I give them full ability to do that. They should have full. Now, at some point, I do think they need to be able to limit the number of transfers. One or maybe even two. But when guys are playing at four schools, that gets to be a little much. But at any rate, the biggest point of all of this is that you have now where people are going to lose a faith in the integrity of the game. With the first time that Brendan Sorsby misses a wide open guy in the end zone, people are going to be asking, did he throw that away? because, we know he's a gambler. And did he fall off the wagon here? And have the gamblers got to him? Well, what's happened here? If you can't have faith in the integrity of the game, that's what the point I made about Pete Rose, right? Pete gambled on the game. They proved that he did it. He didn't admit it for a long time. He eventually did. He was banned for 36 years, and he only was reinstated 7 months after his death. There was a reason for that, because of the Black Sox scandal, right? And what happened in baseball, Kennesaw Mountain Landis felt like you got to make a statement here. And the statement was, we can't tolerate this kind of thing anymore. And that's what happened.
The landscape has greatly changed, in baseball in particular, and all the leagues have cozied up with gambling outfits and are sponsored by gambling outfits and have deals with gambling outfits. I get all of that, but I don't feel like I'm being an angry old man when I say this. I mean, we're talking about accountability, credibility, and integrity. And when you break down that wall, I think you really do open yourself up to a catastrophic set of events for your league. And we'll see what happens. That is the question for me, is like, what credibility does Brendan Sorsby have with any mispass to any open receiver? What credibility does he have if he has a 48 passing efficiency rating for a game? And most insulting to me is the whole idea of just a lack of accountability. Yeah, you went and you gambled, and you knew it was wrong to gamble, and you did it anyway, and now you're saying, I don't want to receive any punishment. And it's just a level of entitlement to me that is gross and sickening.
Yeah. I feel some empathy for Brendan, because if it's a compulsion and addiction, we know about what that's like, and what people have to do. But there were other adults in the room. They could have made the right call on this, and they didn't do it. So this is really unfortunate. All right, let's talk about a couple other things here real quickly. George Pickens hasn't showed up at OTAs. Surprise, surprise. The Cowboys are getting a little more frustrated about that. I don't know how much more. There's nothing they can do about it. This is what he's going to do. As I wrote last week, to me, the best thing you can hope to happen is they did the right thing by putting the franchise tag on him, which is why he's sitting out. If he'd gotten the contract, he'd be there, I would assume. But I don't think you can risk that right now with a guy like George Pickens, as great as he is. And by playing him this fall and getting a good season out of him, to me, the best thing that could happen then was to tag him again and then trade him. Simply because you can't afford to pay both him and CeeDee Lamb that kind of money on long-term deals. I just think that's crazy. And if I'm going to keep one or the other, I'm going to keep CeeDee Lamb, just because at least he's exhibited a track record here. We know who he is. We don't still really know who George Pickens is. He didn't give us a good idea in Pittsburgh, and there were some things that happened in his first year in Dallas that would indicate that maybe there's not something right here. So we'll see. Secondly, in other Cowboys news, Lance Rensel died at 82. A great receiver for the Cowboys. In the late 60s, early 70s, he was paired up with Bob Hayes, and they were just the most explosive set of receivers in the NFL. Both of them, for about a 3-year period, they averaged almost 1,000 yards a season. That's back when you're not playing, 17 games like you're playing now. So when 1,000 yards really meant something. They were explosive, fast. Lance, 1 year in 1969, averaged 22 yards a catch and had 12 touchdown catches. So he was terrific. And then in 1970, he exposed himself to a 10-year-old girl in University Park. And amazingly enough, and he pleaded guilty to it. The Cowboys traded him after that, but they didn't end his career. They traded him to the Rams. And the reason we shouldn't have been surprised it didn't end his career is because he'd done the same thing as a Minnesota Viking, exposed himself to 2 girls there. So, we talk about how things have just gone to hell in sports, left and right. I got to think that kind of thing happens today. He's not playing football in the NFL, and rightfully so. That was looking back at all that as I was researching it all. And of course, I remembered it, but you still got to research and get to the details of it. It's remarkable how, while obviously people thought that was not good, it did make him a pariah. And some of that was because they said he had a mental illness and he wrote a book about it. But it ended his marriage to Joey Hatterton, a popular entertainer at the time. And it was certainly the end of a very kind of a glamorous life for him and his wife and for the Cowboys for that matter.
Yeah, just I wasn't terribly familiar with Rensel. I was familiar with the name, didn't know his full backstory. I knew he had a troubled past, and it's just a sad story. I mean, there's no other way around it, and it just is. We're 55 years removed from most of this, and it's like just another illustration of how much the world has changed.
Well, yeah, it has. There were
better in some regards, I should say.
Well, the Cowboys had a number of stories, and not always like Lance's, but there were other stories and peccadillos and things. And in those times and back in those days, there was just a real boys will be boys type of response to it, and that wasn't good. And I like to think that we have come a long way since then of saying that we're not going to tolerate guys getting drunk and guys got racing their cars on the highways, and there was always stories about that, racing around the loop 12, Cowboys out there in their cars doing that kind of thing. When that kind of thing happens now, Rashi Rice does that out on Central Expressway. That's crime news. So then that's the way it should have always been. It wasn't always treated that way. But having said all that, rest in peace, Lance. He seemed to have put his life together after that, worked as a government contractor and in retirement in Alexandria, Virginia. So all the best to his loved ones. Anything else, Evan?
I don't have much. I've just been confused by this Rangers team for the last week, and it's had my head swimming. So I'm just not sure what to make of them, and so it's clouded my thinking on just about everything else.
And your thinking was already pretty cloudy.
It was.
Yeah. We're waiting for that sunshiny day for you.
It was. The highlight so far of this week is I have planned, my our official anniversary is June 19th. As you know, we got married in a civil ceremony. Before we had
a civil rights ceremony.
Civil ceremony. So Gina is a big fan of Frank Sinatra. So on our anniversary, or the night after our anniversary, we're going to celebrate our anniversary. The DSO, the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, is doing their Pops concert is a salute to Sinatra and the Rat Pack.
Wow.
We are going to go to the DSO and see that, and hopefully that will make a swinging good night for the two of us, and be a great way to celebrate our 13th anniversary.
How about that? Congratulations. That'd be super. How many does this make?
That would be 13, what I just said.
Did you just say 13? Did I miss that? Well, I think I fell asleep during that part. Listen, we got some real anniversary coming up here. First of all, this is the last podcast before I turn 70 years old on Monday. So there's that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, old, officially old. And then a fossil, yeah. And then Debbie and I on the 27th of this month, we'll be married 39 years. 39.
You just have to outdo me on everything, don't you?
I do. I actually do have to. Well, I'm a lot older than you are. So anyway, it's all good.
Congratulations on both of those.
Yeah. Well, I hope to make it to 70. That'd be great. I can remember once asking my cardiologist, am I going to make it to 70? And he goes, there was a hint of a pause, and he said, oh, sure, we can make 70. And I was like, all right, we can make 70. But what about 71? What about 80? I mean, come on, let's go. I wanted it was like that Seinfeld
70, do I hear
episode.
70? Do I hear 70? I got 70. Do I hear
Oh,
71? You mean 71 and 71, 71,
no,
71?
no, no.
80.
It was like the Costanza did where George wanted the deal about he thought he might have cancer. And he wanted to go like cancer, get out of here. You don't have cancer. Stop it. I wanted that response. 70. Oh, get out of here. You'll outlive everybody here. You'll be 100. You're gonna make it all the way up there.
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
Well, I'm happy for you to make it to 70.
Me too. Me too. All right. That's going to do it for our podcast this week.
I'm
We appreciate you
happy for you to
stopping
make it to 39. I don't know if I can say the same to Debbie.
Oh, I think that you'll find that she felt like she did okay with me.
She did. She did okay.
That's certainly what her parents thought. Maybe. I'm not sure.
He's okay.
He's okay. Yeah. That's a Kevin. Okay, Kevin.
Kevin, did you look at the plans for the Stars Entertainment District?
Yeah, I did. I saw that. I think that all looks great. Here's what I think about all that, Evan. And we're just back up right out of the ending of our podcast. But I think that if Dallas doesn't go to the Stars and say, look, I know you made all these agreements to go to Plano, but what do you need us to do to the American Airlines Center? And we'll do it. If it costs, $500 million, we'll take the $500 million, and we'll pay 3/4 of it, right? You only got to pay $100 million, and we'll pay the rest, and we'll do whatever needs to be done to keep you here in Dallas. I don't think that's completely out of the realm of possibility.
I have no idea with politics these days and how things happen, and particularly in this city. But it is, I just want to say this, that everybody keeps pointing to Atlanta as the Battery as the model that they want to have. And we will see if anybody can create that, because it is one of a kind. And maybe the Stars have that chance because that is where the population center is, and that's kind of how Atlanta has grown. But the Braves also play 81 games a year there. And so without a baseball team in that situation, when you're only playing 40 games a year, I don't know if you're going to have the same ability to draw and keep successful restaurants and entertainment areas and things like that. But we'll see.
Well, that's the thing is, as you pointed out last week, that is an entertainment district there where the Victory Park is. They just don't control it.
Right.
And so that's one issue. Here's another issue. And I have not ever asked anybody this, but I'm just going to float this out here. I'm wondering if one of the problems for Dallas and Dallas downtown is it's hemmed in on 3 sides by highways, right? And so it limits the growth of what you want to do. Like even when they were talking about the Mavericks, to me, what was bogus about the whole argument of putting the Mavericks downtown or moving them from uptown to downtown was that they're not going to have enough acreage there. It's a very small downtown area. And on the other side of that you don't want to be on the other side of that highway. It's just like in Fort Worth when the Bass brothers went in and they took I-30 and moved it on the other side of the old terminal building there in post office so they can include that in their downtown. So there's nobody in Dallas like the Bass brothers who's willing to make that kind of, financial contribution to the good of the city. And B, I was reading something just last night. A friend sent me about the development of Houston. And, I grew up in Houston and spent my early adult life working there. And I appreciate a lot of the things about Houston. There are things I don't appreciate about it. But it was remarkable reading that story about the number of philanthropists and business leaders who did things to advance the growth of that city over the last 150 years. And because people in Dallas love to make fun of Houston. Let's just go over the fact that A, NASA, B, the medical center. I mean, C, Rice Institute, one of the finest universities in the country. There are a lot of great things about that city, and then it has done, and it is always willing to do what needs to be done to take on something. And here in Dallas, we seem to be afraid to take on anything. We seem to be thinking all the time, "Can we make money doing this? If we can't make money
I was
doing
gonna
this,
say, unless it
I
seems
don't
like
do it."
unless it directly benefits me personally, we're a little bit hesitant to do anything. Um, and it was remarked to me by a friend this week, who is in charge of creating some national conventions. He's a doctor, and they can't really come to Dallas for their conventions because of the lack of hotel rooms in downtown Dallas, which has been a 30-year story since I've been here. But you look at Houston and you look at that Hilton downtown near the convention center. That's like a 3,000 room hotel, and then you've got the Marriott Marquis, and on and on. And we just don't. We thought we were going to have that with the Omni, but it's not big enough, and there's no other hotels that have sprung up down there.
No, it's not that. Another thing about the medical center, I didn't know this story that Baylor was hospital was actually here first, and there was a run in with the city, and then and Houston said, "We'll take you," and that's what helped grow the medical center down there in Houston, the largest cancer research hospital in the world, MD Anderson. So there needs to be more of a can-do spirit in this city. There's no question about that. And I realize there are things that, as I just said, just geographically speaking, that the downtown is limited in that space. But there's got to be, ways to make this all work, and that doesn't directly benefit developers, just like the whole move to get City Hall out of the actual building and move it to some, let's move it over here to some of this empty office space we've got here. Well,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and I just personally, because I pass it every day, that whole area on the west side of the highways where the Lou Sterrett courthouse and jail is, that's a huge space that is got great access from highways, and would open up a whole area of west of the highway that I think could be a real boon. But it just doesn't seem like that was ever part of the conversation.
No, it doesn't. I know that it has been in the past, and I don't know why it hasn't been explored now. The only talk you ever hear, obviously, was the Uptown area. But of course, that until Ron Kirk came along, Uptown wasn't a possibility, and so you had a mayor then willing to get out and push for something that happened, and look at the impact that has had on this area. There's just too much in this town, and from my way of thinking, of people just saying, "Nah, you can't do that. We're not doing that." When we were volunteers and our kids, all four of our kids went to Dallas ISD schools all the way through kindergarten, all the way through high school, had a great experience. We loved it. We volunteered, spent a lot of time in it. But the one thing that we hated more than anything was every time you asked, "Can we do this?" somebody said no. No was the reflex reaction. It was almost before you got the question out. You're halfway through the question and somebody's saying no. So these are the things that drive me crazy in this town. I want people to say, "Yes, we can figure this out. We're going to do this. We're bright and we've got ideas and we can make this happen."
Yeah, it's time. Dallas has really got to have a vision for downtown. I just hate to see what is happening to downtown, and I understand that the population center has moved north, and maybe there will be some re-geographic positioning of what constitutes, downtown type facilities. But we've gotten way off of sports. I would like to see a vibrant downtown Dallas, where people feel it's a destination. And there's a lot going for it. There's a great arts district down there. There is that nice park, the Clyde Warren Park. I'd like to see more happen downtown to draw people there, whether it's sports or not.
Yeah. Well, and then one last thing about that. Yes, population centers have moved north, but we've had also a mass migration back towards the center of the city. When I moved here in 1985, there wasn't anybody living within 5 miles of downtown. So that has changed dramatically, and so that there's got to be people who understand this, study other urban centers and how they do and what they've got done. Because as was pointed out to by a reader the other day, I guess there's the Mavericks are the only NBA team not in downtown or directly at least tangential to downtown when they move. They will, and look, I don't have a big problem with them moving to Valley View. That's a blighted area now, and that will be great for that area, and it's not too far from where I live. Although it won't matter to me by that time because I'm not going to be covering them anymore when they get there in 2031.
So are you announcing your retirement in 2032?
No, I'm not. Not yet. We'll see. One of these days I'm going to retire, though.
You better retire by 2032 because apparently Social Security is going to have another shortfall.
Yeah, I was glad to read that this morning about how there was just, as a matter of fact, I am just now trying to draw my Social Security. I've waited until I was 70 to get it. You know, boy, what a boon this is going to be because I waited until I was 70. Look at all the money I'm going to get now. And then I find out that, well, yeah, enjoy it while you can because you're not going to get it for very long. So nice. It's nice to get old.
I'll be 67 in 2032. Perfect timing for me.
I'm going to take all that money. I'm just going to live it up too, Evan. I'm going to just be partying all the time.
I tell every young person I meet, you better keep working.
Yeah. Work and work and work.
I need your money.
Works until you're dead. All right. That absolutely does it. No more. That's it. I'm cutting you off, Evan. We're not talking about anything else.
But it was good banter.
It was good banter. All right. So, really, for sure, from everybody in here to everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.